皆さんこんにちは and welcome to Shogo's podcast. So today, I would like to react to some of the comments that I received in this video where I talked about my experiences of bullying in elementary school. If you haven't seen the video yet, I have the link in the description box, by the way. So in the video, I talked about my experiences because I am a returnee. I am Japanese, but I grew up in America for 6 years and I came back to Japan when I was in 5th grade. I acted differently. I was this strange boy in the class, always raising my hand and always stating my own opinions like how I was taught in America, which you don't do in Japan. And there was this group of boys who would bully me physically, mentally. And in the video, I talked about that experience. And also in the video, I said that the reason why I was able to overcome the bullying, how I ended it, was because one day, this boy was throwing, well, two boys were throwing this cleaning cloth. It was a dusty cloth that you use to clean the floor or the bathroom and such. They were kind of making it into a ball and throwing it across the classroom. And it landed on my head, probably accidentally. I don't know, maybe it was on purpose, but it landed on my head and this boy came up to me and started using that cloth to wipe my face and my clothes, calling me that I'm garbage, that I should be wiped with using that cloth. So when this happened, all my frustrations and my anger that was, I tried to seal inside myself, it completely exploded and I punched this boy in the stomach, and from that day on, no one came up to bully me anymore. So this is the episode I talked about. And in the comments and in the video, I said that now I know that relying on violence is not a good way to solve a problem. It's not the right solution. And in the comments of the video, I found a lot of people telling me that no, Shogo, violence was the answer for you. It did solve your problems, and violence is sometimes the right way to try to solve a problem, And in today's podcast, I want to say that I still can't agree with these comments. Let me tell you why. It's probably because I am a trainee in Japanese martial arts in Budo, In every Japanese martial art, in any Budo like Kendo, Judo, Karate, or Iaido, the katana martial art I train in, we are always taught that we are training what we train so that we don't have to use the skills we are learning. So this may sound a little bit strange. You're learning how to punch or kick or swing a weapon, but the ultimate goal is to not use it. So what the goal is, well, what's supposed to be the purpose of martial arts is to be strong enough, to be mentally and physically strong enough so you don't have to rely on violence to communicate with someone, because it is believed that violence is the most immature form of communication with someone because you're afraid, because you're scared. So I always say this example when I talk about this. For example, if there was a thief, there was a robber that suddenly broke into your house with a knife, and if you haven't trained anything, like no martial arts, you don't know how to protect yourself and your family, you would probably be very scared, right? You would probably maybe grab a knife inside your house yourself and maybe even accidentally kill that person that came into your house. So this is very sad, right? If you were actually able to communicate with that person, maybe he or she might have been afraid themselves. Maybe they had some kind of reason they had to do it. Maybe they were just, at that moment, their mind wasn't, working as usual. Maybe if there was a time that you can sit down quietly and talk with that person, maybe you could have been friends. But because you didn't have the skills to accept their anger, and with compassion, you answered with violence, you hurt that person yourself too. Now, if you trained in martial arts and you knew how to protect yourself and how to accept their anger and their violence, you might have been able to stop that person without hurting them. And this is the goal of training martial arts in real life. So because I believe that this is correct and this is the way that Japanese Budo should be, that's the reason why I said in the video that I shouldn't have relied on violence to communicate with that person. So now let me give you some real life examples. I'm going to be talking about two people. One is my friend from middle school, my classmate from middle school, and two is actually my own brother. So one, my classmate in middle school. So this boy, he was a very skinny boy, very short and skinny with glasses on. Might be the typical geeky boy, kind of nerdy boy you might imagine. And he was kind of bullied once in a while. I see him being bullied. And because I've experienced it too, I was very concerned about him, worried about him. But one day, there was this group of boys when he was about to leave the school. He was putting his shoes on. He was just about to leave. There was this group of bullies. They came up to him, trying to hit him with the school bags they had. So I was like, oh no, he's getting bullied. I don't know, what should I do? I was scared myself. I didn't know if I should go and help. And I was watching the scenery, the scene. But, it was a rainy day. And this boy who was being bullied, my classmate, he had an umbrella in his hand. And the bullies were, going like, hey, what are you doing? I was hitting him with the school bags. And then this boy suddenly used the umbrella to hit the school bag out of this bully's hand. And it happened so fast, and I couldn't even see the movements of his umbrella. And later on, I'll find out that he trained in kendo, and he was in his second dan, I think. He was definitely a black belt, though. He definitely had a dan, so he was experienced in a lot. He'd been training for 6 or 7 years at that time already, I think. He started it when he was in elementary school. And the bullies were very surprised, of course, and they just left, without doing anything to him anymore. So what I want to say is that if my classmate, if he didn't have the skills of kendo, he might have gotten really angry and maybe, try to hit the bully's face or his body with the umbrella, maybe even hurting him, maybe leaving a scar that wouldn't be healed even after time, maybe hitting his eyes or something, for example, right? But because he was skilled, he was able to be calm and just hit the school bag away and stop the violence, right? So I was very, very moved by the scene that I saw. I still remember it even now, And from that point, I already admired Budo and Japanese martial arts at that time. So next, a story about my own brother. My brother actually, he doesn't train it anymore, but he trained in karate for 13 years, I think, from elementary school, yes. And he went to the same high school as me, the Funairi High School in Hiroshima, the international communication course with extra English classes and such. And he wanted to go to the same high school, so he went there too. So when he was going to the school, there was this incident that happened. One of his classmates, it was a boy, somehow he really didn't like my brother. Somehow he found my younger brother annoying. I don't know. He did nothing to him, and one day this boy's, his anger came to a peak, and he suddenly, grabbed my brother's neck and kind of put his nails into my brother's neck, and my brother started to bleed. But my brother, he didn't do anything to this boy. He just stood there and glared at him while this boy was screaming and scratching his neck, and my brother was bleeding. Eventually, I think it was the teachers that came to stop them, and eventually got into a big problem. My mother had to go to school and talk with the other boys' parents and such. But when my sister, I have a younger sister too, when she came home and saw my brother with his bleeding neck, she was like, his name is Takeru, by the way, my brother. Well, she was like, TK. We call him TK in English. So, TK, you have the skills of karate. Why didn't you just punch this boy back? You know how to properly attack him. You know how to kick or punch. Why didn't you do that? And my brother, he answered, sister, Well, you don't say sister in English, but, in Japanese you say one-chan, And he said, sister, for example, if you had a puppy coming up to you and biting you, would you punch him? Now, does this make sense? So because my brother had the confidence that if he were to fight, he would definitely win, he was able to not rely on violence because he wasn't scared of this boy. He was able to choose the path of keeping the situation calm, keeping it peaceful as much as possible. And because he didn't punch this boy back or do anything to him, he was not blamed of anything. And the teachers was very, very amazed by my brother's attitude, and I was very proud of him too. It's almost like an anime character, right? It was the scenery was awesome. My sister asking him, why didn't you attack back? And he was like, would you punch a puppy? The way he said calling this boy a puppy was so funny, and also I was just really, really proud of my younger brother. So again, from these experiences, I really believe that relying on violence, of course, it would depend on the situation, of course, but I believe that it's best to always try to seek the path of peace, of real communication using words, and not your fist, and not a weapon, and trying not to hurt anyone. Of course, I believe is the best way to solve a problem. So yes, so that's the end of the story for today. I hope it was interesting to listen to. And again, if you haven't seen my video about my experiences of bullying, I hope you can take a look and maybe come back to this podcast to deepen your understandings towards it too. And please let me know about what you think. In different cultures, they will of course have different education and such, and everything will be taught differently. And I want to also say that I don't believe that the Japanese martial arts Budo is completely perfect, because there are a lot of people training Japanese martial arts too who train in that, and they are taught that peace and not relying on violence is important, but they actually do in real life, and they brag because they're strong. And there are people who are like this too. So I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I just want to say that I believe that the virtues of it is correct, and that is what I believe, and that's the reason why I train in the things that I do now. All right, so everyone, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.